program of the Harvard Business School. So it is indeed a privilege for all of us to have you, Hussein, with us today, this morning, and a warm welcome to Green Valley National School and PU College, and a warm welcome to India. I hope next time you would visit us, our school as well. So one thing to say, especially about Hussein when he is conducting this session, is that having started his life in an atoll called Adu, which was earlier the British Coral Command during the Second World War days, less known and less, but making a lot of flutter around, because a, a plethora of youngsters, dynamic, who were motivated, who were determined to make it in life, who have made it in life, and Hussein is one such person who has made it big in life. We also have, the present finance minister of Maldives, Ibrahim Amir, people in West Point, in the American military schools, too, very doctors, engineers, professionals serving in different areas. This could happen from small classrooms with such kind of determination and vibration in their eyes and motivation, which took them to different parts of the world, which took them to different situations, and today they are making a big mark. And we are indeed privileged to welcome Mr. Hussein Afif. Thank you for coming and spending these precious moments with us, with the Green Valley family. Welcome you, Hussein Afif. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And good morning, everybody. It's a privilege, to connect to all of you today. And, we have about 45 minutes or more with, together. You probably have seen the topic that I'm going to speak. But before we do that, I would like to ask you a question. You probably haven't met me before, but the way I do these sessions is, whether it's virtually or in person, it has to be very interactive. So obviously, just to give a couple of guidelines, obviously, I would imagine everyone here is very much accustomed to use of, virtual, whether it is Google Meet or Microsoft Teams or Zoom. Of course, we're using Zoom today, so you have the chat box, so feel free to go to chat box anytime and you can write comments. So let's take a moment to use the chat box a little bit now before I actually get into the slide deck. My question to all of you is, how are you doing today? How are you feeling now at this moment to write down your comments and your thoughts? Also, I would actually suggest that everyone to keep their microphones and video off so that you get the best bandwidth connection and then you get the right coverage of the slides and everything else. Yeah. So go to the chat box and write how you're feeling today. What's your mood like at this moment of time? Yeah. So go to the chat box. Okay. I see that one person said we are excited. Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Very good. Yeah. Good. So keep the comments coming. So that's great. Yeah. Wonderful. So I will also at the same time I will actually share my my slide deck, so you can see the slide deck now. I'll keep the slide deck in this format so that it will be easier for me to move through the slide, because at times when you put the slide deck on full motion, what happens is that it gets stuck a little bit. But this hopefully will help us to to get going. Yeah, very good. So first of all, thank you once again, Principal. I always call Principal because once a principal to me is always a principal. Once a teacher to me is always a teacher, because I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for my teachers and what they did to me. Of course, you get, in life we achieve greatness because of the people that we meet, and of course, our parents are one of them, that they bring us to the world, and then the teachers, and perhaps the people that we walk around. So thank you for that introduction. And my topic today is black box thinking. I mean, this is a topic that I truly believe in. I truly believe that regardless of the profession that we have, this is something that we should really be looking in every day. I learned this topic through visiting lecturer and also an author, and I'll show you the book so you can perhaps get the book and read it if you want to explore it further. He was an immigrant from Pakistan to the United Kingdom many years ago, and he then became the table tennis champion in 1993 in the Commonwealth. So quite a character, and I met him in London School of Economics during one of my executive education program a couple of years ago. And I became a student of this topic and then got trained him, and I teach this now around the world. So we're going to spend about 45 minutes on going through. I have lots of stories to share, some principles and practices that you can take back. And obviously then any questions that you have, I'll be happy to respond towards the end. And as I go through the presentation, there will also be times where I will ask you questions, so you'll have to respond that on the chat box so that it helps you to understand what we are going to learn. So in terms of this whole topic, how many of you have heard about the term black box before? If you have heard about it, go to the chat box and write yes, you have heard about it. The word black box. How many of you have heard about it? Black box. So go to the chat box and write if you have heard about it. Yeah. Yeah. So Sir Jomati say yes, and I guess yes. Some of you may have heard about it. Some of you may have not. Well, in general, the word black box is mainly associated in the business of aviation industry, because every aeroplane is equipped with two black boxes, right? And now, for safety purpose, they are obviously, built into a, a heavy metal, aluminium, and it's quite safe. So even if the plane crash, obviously this little piece that you can actually literally carry from your two hand, and if you're very strong, you can even carry on one hand. Won't get damaged. So this is now in bright orange, as you can see. So funny enough, they call it as the black box. Now, one of these box in an aeroplane, right? It actually records all the conversations that the pilot, the co-pilot will have inside the cockpit and also with the air traffic control tower. The other black box is recording all the data, the electronic data and the signals that the flight receives. So whenever there is a airplane crash or a situation or an incident that happens, the first thing that air crash investigators look for is the black box. Because why? Because the black box will actually record all the conversations. It has all the electronic data and all the signals. So whenever there is an incident, they immediately find it. They listen to the recording. They can actually understand what happened prior to the incident and what led to the accident and what led to the situation. Now, today I would like to tell all of you that the aviation industry is an industry where they have this mindset of what you may have heard known as growth mindset. One of my passion and one of my hobby is to read. I read a lot. This year, so far, I read 22 books. So you can imagine how much I read. And every day I read. So every day I read, for a couple of, minutes, usually after the breakfast. And also I watch a lot of documentaries. So one of the documentaries that I always watch is about air crash investigation. Not that I am an aviation expert, but it just gives you a different perspective of how things happen and what can you learn, because there's a lot we can learn from different professions. And I would argue that aviation industry is an industry where they have growth mindset, because if you study the past 5 decades of air crash investigations, not the same incident have happened again. What I mean is that, for example, in 2009 there was an Air France air crash investigation in the Atlantic Ocean. It took them 2 years to find this little piece, black box, from underneath the Atlantic Ocean, over 2,300 meters down. They found it, they studied it, they change the way they train the pilots, they change the manual, so the same accident won't happen, right? So this is really what the black box thinking is all about. It's really taking the incident and finding out exactly what happened, train your people, and making sure the manuals are changed, making sure the way we do things are changed so that the same incident won't happen again. And you see this in different parts of our life, different parts of the professions, whether you look into schools, or whether you look into educational institutions, or whether you look into aviation or medical. But then also there's a different type of this. For example, medical. We look into the world of medical and science. You probably may have heard this in hospitals. Sometimes we don't know when someone is going to die, right? We don't know that. But sometimes you take an ill patient to a hospital, and something goes wrong in an operation theater, or something goes wrong in the hospital, and the person dies. And then, of course, you are the parent or you are the guardian, and you will say, how did that happen? Right? It shouldn't have happened this way if you did this. You will hear from the doctors or the hospitals this term or this phrase. It's just one of those things. I mean, you hear that in hospitals because they basically say, well, yes, it should have happened this way, but it just happened. Because in hospitals or in health sector, the growth mindset is not yet there as it should be. Because in cultures or organizations where there is growth mindset, if something goes wrong, you will do whatever it takes to make sure the same mistake doesn't happen again. And that's really what the whole story around growth mindset is all about. This is a favorite football player, David Beckham. I know India is one of the greatest countries in the world in terms of cricket. I love cricket, but I don't know how to play it. So it's hard for me to link that with cricket. But I love football, and I used to play football, so I thought I want to include. So this is David Beckham. Many of you probably may know. Now, we all know David Beckham as one of the greatest free kicker we have seen in the history of the football. But back when he was playing, I mean, there are great players now, but David Beckham is very good at one thing. It's really the free kick and scoring the goals when one wouldn't think that will happen. Now here's an interesting thing. It's nice to talk about David Beckham and his achievements now, but do we know why he became who he is? Now here's his story. David Beckham, when he was a kid, when he used to go to school, he was not from a very rich family. He was from a middle class family. He used to do what he was a good student. When he would come back from his school, he would take a ball and he would go to his backyard and he would actually play with the ball, just by himself. And his father saw it. And then his father bought some PVC pipes and made a little goal post at the backyard. So David Beckham, when he was at the age of 11 to 12, he would actually come back from school and he would actually practice this free kick. And when he was, when he started going to the early secondary school education, the Manchester football academy saw his talent. But before any football academy actually could hire him, he already practiced 5,547 free kicks. Which means by the time he reached to an academy to get professional coaching, he already knew what it takes to make a great free kick so that it gets into the goalpost. Isn't that amazing, right? That's what you call as the growth mindset. That's really what you call as this understanding and mindset of the truth behind somebody's success, right? Because it just doesn't happen like that. Now, like I mentioned to all of you before, I would actually recommend you to take a note of this book and read it. As a teacher, as an educator, as a leader, this is a very important read. I read this book. This is a lovely book. It's called Black Box Thinking, and you will love reading it. And there's a lot of stories like this, which I just shared with you. And it came from an author called Matthew Syed, somebody who I know very personally. We're good friends. and he obviously, and I had the opportunity to understand this directly from him. So now moving forward, so I'd like to obviously, ask a couple of questions from all of you. So here's my first questions. How does success really happen? So go to the chat box and write. What I mean is, like, when you ask somebody, how are you successful, or why are you so successful? What do they usually say, right? So what makes you successful, right? Like an organization or a person or a community, what makes them successful? Go to the chat box and write that your response. Very good. I can see what's like hard work. Very good. Yeah, hard work. What makes them, okay? Dedication, practice, effort. Yes, wonderful. Involvement and satisfaction, courage. When you deliver, have a vision, set a goal. Yeah, very good, very good. Now, all of you are wonderful teachers. You are educators. I have no doubt that you live with the growth mindset. However, when we ask this question from a couple of people at times, I mean, somebody said, Krishna, I think, said, learn from mistakes. Pramesh said, success is always because of consistent efforts and the right intention. Absolutely, yes. Now, here's the thing. I actually went around and I asked this question from a couple of other people. And the response is sometimes, different. Because you could also ask this question in a different way. You could ask the question like this. Say, where does high performance comes from, right? The most best cricket teams, cricket players, football teams, organizations that perform, like the Fortune 500, or the best schools in the world, or the best nations in the world, all right? What makes them so competitive, right? Now, I asked this question from a couple of people, and they tell me sometimes, well, it's because of talent. You are born with the talent. Some say it's because of a gift you have. Naturally, you have a gift that you have. Or it's because you have more resources, or it's because of the aptitude, right? Well, I argue with those people and I say, well, yes, somebody could be born with a natural gift or a talent, but if that person doesn't practice it and doesn't, evolve that particular skill, how can he perform at the same level? But many of you here gave responses like this, right? Which is hard work, practice, collaboration, persistence, perseverance, resilience. This is really how success happens. Because in growth mindset organizations, in growth mindset human beings, in black box thinking, this is what it's all about. In 2009, there was an Air France air crash, which I mentioned to you earlier. These things should never happen, but we live in a world where things can happen, right? And the French air crash investigators, it took them 2 years. They spent all the money almost equivalent the price of 2 aeroplanes, because Airbus, a plane could cost you up to up to 100 million, 200 million. So they spend more money just to go and find that underneath the seabed in Atlantic Ocean. Why? Because they were so resilient in terms of finding out what went wrong. How come the world's most modernized aircraft just fell off the sky? When they studied the black box, they found out there was a miscommunication between both the pilot and co-pilot. They found out the way the pilots were trained was not right. They found out that the manual was inaccurate. The manual they were using for training was inaccurate. So the whole training system was changed. You see, in that example, all these things come, right? The hard work of finding the black box, the practice, changing, collaborating the French investigation with the other air crash investigators, right? So as I move forward, what I would like us to understand here is a very, very important point here. In the world we live, you may have heard this before, we have two choices: live with the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. Now, I'll tell you one thing, a personal story of mine. And, Miss Mina Matthew was my teacher. And I would say she changed the way who I was as a student. I was not a very hard-working student when I reached up until grade 8. And that is when I met Principal and Miss Mina Matthew, and she was my English teacher, if I recall, from grade 8 or grade 9. And what changed my mind was I come from a family where my father was a fisherman. We have 9 members in the family, so I call it as a football team. So you put the mom and dad is a football team, because you need 11 in a football team. So when I was in grade 8, something changed my story, my mind, because one of my best friends, Ahmad Hussein, got the best all-round student. And I was in grade 8, so I was sitting in the school auditorium where the prize day was there, and I said to me, if he gets the best all-round student prize, why not me? But I was in grade 8, so I still have 2-3 years to study. And from then I changed the way I study. I was not a very intelligent student, to be honest. I don't credit, but I was a hard-working student. I changed the way I do things. I studied quite hard. Here's the thing. I would actually, and I don't think even Principal and Miss knows this yet. From 2000, so I was in grade 1996. I joined the Southern Secondary School where Sir was the principal there at the time, and in fact he was one of the best principal we had, and that's why we had some bright students. The Modi's finance minister is one of his student, and which was my classmate too, and one of my best friends. So I would actually go every year after the school finish in December when the exam is over. I would go to my senior grade 10 students, the best ones, and I would tell them, hey, can you give me all your notebooks? The ones they take the note, because they will give me all the notebooks. Up until today, I have the notebooks of the best all-round student of 1996, 1997, 1998, and 1999. I use those things to prepare for my O-level exam. And I got a very good grade in O-level. And the rest is history. When I finished the school, with the grace from all my teachers and the school leadership, I became the best all-round student in 1999, 2000, when I finished the school. And I know that happened because I changed the way I used to do things. Literally, I changed the way I used to do things, right? And the reason why I shared this story with all of you is that I consider that as a success because I changed the way I used to do things. I took this growth mindset of continuously learning, willing to try, and I really ensured that whatever qualities that I had, I keep on, improving and working towards being a greater person than I was, right? And of course, then I, studied in high school, and then I'm where I am today. But it is important for us to understand this. The growth mindset is what we need to really move forward in this world, right? Now, let's take a moment here and go to the chat box. Are you enjoying our conversation today? Go to the chat box and write yes if you are. Okay, so that I can see that we have 108 here. Okay, very good. Thank you. Yeah. Now, we're talking about growth mindset, and we're living in a rather unusual time, right? Because 2019 was quite a great year. And 2020, right into 2020, we thought, this is going to be an amazing year, yet we're in an unusual time. We're into a pandemic, global health crisis. Now, the picture you see here was from the Spanish flu, as they call, in 1918, 1918, when the humankind saw the pandemic. Now, it is hard to believe that on this call today, we have anyone who experienced the 1980 pandemic, right? Because that was in 1918, and I don't think most of our parents were born then. But I share this picture with you today because back then, the world was in a different state. The world was in a state where, we didn't have the way to move around. So the virus spread quite slow. Now, if you look in, it spread very fast. In 3 months, since February, 3 months, the virus is in every imaginable country in the world, right? But I have a good news for you, and this is my belief. Now, the world is in a better state today. We are better in terms of technology. We are better in terms of education. We are better in terms of leaderships in the world. We are better in terms of the economic competitiveness around the world. So we are going to get through this. We will. There is no doubt about it. It's not going to stay forever. And when we get through this, the economy will even bounce back faster than 1918 or any other pandemics that the humankind have seen. There is no doubt about it. But it depends on us. It depends on us as human beings, because the world was made great not by buildings or by structures or by bridges. It's what human beings did. It's what the humankind did. And I see this as an opportunity that we all have to change the way we do things and to change the way we think, right? I mean, who would have thought that Cambridge University will teach all their school classes until April next year virtually? Who would have thought that the Harvard Business School will teach all their programs virtually? Who would have thought the Oxford will teach their programs virtually? Because when it comes to Yale or Harvard or MIT, Cambridge, there's a prestige where you walk into the university, and there's a feeling when you walk in the university, you learn, even if you don't attend a class, because I've had the opportunity to study at the Harvard Business School. There's a whole different feeling when you are in the campus, right? Versus when you are studying from home while sitting in your computer, right? Because there's a lot of wisdom inside it, right? Because they took this as an opportunity. So how many of you on this call today are seeing the current situation we are in this pandemic, in this home confinement, in this lockdown? How many of you see this as an opportunity that we have? If you see this as an opportunity, go to the chat box and write, yes, you see this as an opportunity, right? I mean, certainly, living as with the mindset of growth mindset, we should see that as an opportunity, right? Definitely, yes, it's a problem that we have, because and with every problem we see there is an opportunity, right? So for the next 20 minutes or so, I would like to link that with, and I'm going to give you 5 tips that you can actually build or put that into your own to your own what I call as the black box, right? Now you see here, this is a quote that I put together. Crisis is the mother of invention. Now what I mean by this is that if you look around the world, I mean, you are teachers. Many of you here reads a lot. You probably know more than what I know. Now, if you look into any great invention in the world, any great invention, any great thing that has happened in the world, there is a story behind it. In the story, if you study, there is a story of a crisis or something bad happened, so that they took that to a whole level and they and then they developed something. Now, everybody knows Uber, right? I remember I used Uber. Hey, do you want to know a story of why I used Uber in Mumbai? I was in Mumbai in December last year. I went to speak in a conference in Taj Lane Ends Hotel in Mumbai. Literally, I had 24 hours to be in Mumbai because I had to fly to somewhere else the next day. So I took an Uber, and mistakenly onto the Uber, I wrote the Air Force Airport in Mumbai. There's an Air Force Airport a little bit far from the main airport. I was so tired after the conference, I didn't check. So the Uber driver took me there, and when I got out, I saw all these army planes, and I said, oh my God, I'm in the wrong place. That was one of my Uber experience in India. Anyway, so if you look into Uber, you know how the Uber started? It's not because they had money. One of the founder of Uber is David Plouffe. David Plouffe was the campaign manager for President Barack Obama in 2008 when he won the presidency. He was one of the best, campaign manager in the history of the U.S. And what happened was in November 2008, after the campaign was over and Obama won, he was meeting for business purposes in San Francisco, downtown San Francisco. And around 1 o'clock in the morning, he came off with his friends from his apartment. He said, "We're hungry, we need to go and eat." So they asked for a taxi, a normal taxi service. The taxi never showed up. It took them 30 minutes, 45 minutes. They've been waiting for taxi. So David Plouffe called his friend and said, "Hey, can you, if you are aware, can you please come and pick us up and drop to this restaurant because we need to eat?" They went to the restaurant. There were 4 people, David Plouffe and a couple of other friends. And they said, these taxi services are not reliable. So why not we put our own cars tomorrow on the roads? We create a messenger group. We inform our friends that we are on the road. If you want to travel, you can call us. We will do the taxi service for you. So the next day they put 4 of their friends. They put 4 cars on the road. They got different trips. In the day 1 itself, they made $1,200, and they said, "This is a good idea." Then they look for the finances. Rest is history. That's how the Uber came. You see, Uber came because of a crisis of David Plouffe, who was in terms of one of the original founders or thinkers behind it. And David Plouffe was the chief strategist for Uber for quite some time during the early stage, right? That's one story that just shows. Here's another story. The gentleman who you see is a pilot of a Mordovian national airline. On the other picture, you see some face shields, right? Because of the pandemic, what happened? He did not get time to fly because all the flights were grounded, which happened everywhere in the world. Of course, he will have 1 trip per week because the flights were reduced. And you know what he started doing? He started making face shields during his off time. Isn't that amazing? I read news a lot. I know in India there are many stories like this too, right? But what we are sharing is all growth mindset examples. If you look around the world, for example, and if for example, if I ask from all of you, who is a great leader? You will have many names, right? You will have the names like, I'm a big fan also of Mahatma Gandhi. Studied and there's the last 5 years I've been to Mumbai every single year, February, because in February, except this year because of the pandemic, the event didn't happen. But every year, February, they used to have a World HRD Congress, and I speak in the conference. Every year, I would visit the so-called the residence of Mahatma Gandhi in Mumbai, and I would visit and I spend some time to study about Winston Churchill is a great leader. If you look into the current world, you also have the leaders like the U.S. presidents, the U.K. presidents, and all those things. But globally, 90% of the world, the human beings and the leaders agree that Nelson Mandela was a great leader, and universally is accepted as that. Maybe for some of you may not, and it's all right. My point is not that. You know what made Nelson Mandela a great leader? It's not because of it's not because he was put in jail. It's what he did after his time in the jail. Right? When he left when he was released from the jail, he didn't look back. He came and he changed the world, right? Rest is history. South Africa is where it is today because of what he did. And imagine if he came out of this jail and he said, "I'm going to revenge. I'm going to put those people who put me in jail." In fact, he invited his jailers for the inauguration when he was the president, when he became the president. This is what we're talking today about. That's what growth mindset is all about, right? And imagine from a crisis of being in jail for more than 27 years, he created something amazing, right? Here's another story. I love telling story, as you all know. This is pizzeria in downtown Chicago, and I was there in October. So it's a very personal story because I got to know the owner of the place. During the lunchtime in downtown Chicago on a normal day, this is one of the most busiest pizzeria because and they don't sell full pizzas. They sell slices. So you have different varieties, and you can pick up a slice, and it's not that expensive. So there's a lot of people who goes there. Because of the pandemic, they have to close the entire pizzeria, which means 20 people who are working there will lose the job. But the owner here, who is also a friend of mine, said, we can't let 20 people lose the job. You know what he started doing? They started making face shields using the oven that they will make the pizza. Because to make face shields, what do you need? You need those sheets. You have the oven that can actually put the temperature as high as what you would do in factories where they would make the face shields. He started making face shields and he started selling face shields. Because of this, he was able to keep the job of everyone. Of course, on a low pay, he was able to keep the job of everyone. Right? Now, let's take a moment and think about this. All the stories that I've shared with you, and the first thing you need to develop in terms of your own black box thing is, regardless of the situation, we as leaders, we as professionals, we as educators, we as great human beings that serve other people, we need to always have this mindset, do what we can with what we have. Because that's what made us as leaders. Because if you complain about what you don't have, it's not going to come to you if you don't work for it. So the first message here from all those stories I shared earlier, especially the story of the Uber, the face shields, and Nelson Mandela, is do what you can with what you have. Now, if we look into our community, that's not what we see. In our community, what we see is this. People are blaming each other, right? People are saying, they didn't do this, he didn't do it, I didn't get it. We as teachers here and school leaders, we are considered as teachers, as leaders. And, I always say teaching is influence, nothing less, nothing more. You influence thousands of people every day. You influence community, you influence parents, you influence many people. And we can play a huge role here in this growth mindset, letting the community know and understand, and making our students think, do what you can with what you have. Because what we see in the community is a lot of blame and shame, right? We tend to blame the community who didn't do this, for example, we're in lockdown and we ordered something and it didn't arrive on time. We tend to write that on social media and these things we see, right? But I don't see it that way. I see that we have a bigger responsibility as leaders, because the interesting thing is that we're talking a lot about this new normal. To me, it's a mindset that we need to live. New normal is not a thing, right? It is a mindset that we need to live. Because if we can get through this situation, and this is going to stay with us for next, at least 3 to 6 months, right? Probably not at the same level as now. It will slow down along the way. But the mindset of how can I be more human? Because there's a very big difference between human beings and being human. Human beings, like all the living and breathing beings, right? Like us, all of us here. But being human beings, how can I be more compassionate towards others? How can I give more care and love to others? How can I listen to people more? How can I understand people from their perspective versus our perspective, right? That's what you call as being more human. For example, when we reopen the economies, our requirement will be wear face mask when we go outside. Being human is wearing the face mask wherever you go. Being human means sanitize your hand all the time. Because basically what we're saying is that, we're saying we're in this together. The way I behave will impact your health, and the way you behave will impact my health. So how can I be more human? Follow all these instructions. But we know in our communities, we see a different story. So my message to all of you as school leaders here is really do your best to be somebody who advocates these good practices. Now, as I, sort of come into the last part of our key message and our session today here, still have about 10 minutes to go. Here's an interesting thing here. What you choose and what you focus is what you're going to get. If you ask for more love, you're going to get more love. If you ask for more worry, you're going to get more worry. If you self-doubt about yourself, there's a lot of that. If you made a mistake and you feel guilty about it, there's a lot of that. And all of this is going to put a lot of stress and anxiety, right? Now, here's the thing. I spend most of my time, since, after I graduated, I spent most of my time in the last 15 years in the hospitality industry. So we serve, and, we serve guests and, in the resort. And because of the pandemic, our business is closed. The resort is closed for the last 4 months. So literally, there's nothing to do. But I'll tell you one thing. I have been more busier in the last 4 months than the last 5 years. I have developed more contents, more writings in the last 4 months than in my entire life. I have read more books in the last 4 months than the last 5 years. I have connected with more people in the last 4 months than the last 5 years. I have been more kind to people in the last 4 months than my entire life. What am I trying to say here? What we focus is what we get. Imagine if you wake up in the morning and you go to school, right? And you meet one of your teacher, and the teacher says, "How are you doing?" "Tired." The second teacher asks, "How are you doing?" "I'm tired." The third teacher asks, "How are you doing?" "I'm tired." Like this, you keep on saying, "I'm tired, I'm tired, I'm tired, I'm tired." By the end of the day, how are you going to feel? You will feel exhausted. Because what we feed to our mind, that's the thought. The thought becomes our belief. Our belief is what we're going to do, and what we're going to do is what other people are going to get. So that is a very important thing I want everybody here to remember. Because what we feed to our mind is what we believe. Like, for example, we have 100 people on this call or more. Now, some of us here, for example, may say, "I have a very good idea to improve the quality of education and to improve the community of your school." But at the same time, you're saying to your mind, "Well, I still doubt about it. I don't think anyone is going to like my idea." So because of that thought in your mind, you never went to principal or the school senior leadership and shared the idea. For 4 years, you are having the idea. Right? That's it. But for example, you should say, "Well, I have a great idea. I believe in this idea. I know it's going to work." You should go and speak to the principal. You should get that done. That's what I'm saying here. And that's really the key message here that I would like to share with all of you as we, come sort of to the end of our session here today. And my last 10 minutes, I want to share with all of you is how can you develop your own black box? I'm going to give you 5 things very quickly that if you can take note of this, and if you do these things every day, you are going to be a great community leader. You're going to add value to people every day. So here you go. The first one is lead yourself, right? Lead yourself. And what do I mean by leading yourself? Now, Leading yourself means if you can't look after yourself, you can't look after other people. If there's one thing that this pandemic has shown is the importance of our own wellness and our own well-being, right? Look after yourself. Take care of yourself. Spend some time for fitness, exercise, healthy practices. Read things that helps you to feed good thoughts into your mind. Because if you can't look after yourself, you can't look after other people. You can't, serve other people. And what I really mean by this is lead yourself is if you learn something, do it first before you ask others to do it. In general, but basically practice what you preach, right? That's the first one. And these 5 black box ideas is something that I do my best to live every day. The second thing is add value to others. This is about recognizing other people, being thankful, sending appreciation messages. I mean, I'm not sharing this because Miss Meena Matthew is on the call, but you can ask her every single year on Teachers' Day, I will call her. And sometimes you don't even know I'm calling. I remember one time last year, Teachers' Day, I called her. She was, I think, on the vehicle, on a car, driving home or somewhere. And it was 5th of October, as you know, internationally that's the day, but in different parts of the world we celebrate Teachers' Day differently. I called her, and I appreciate because I appreciate those who touch my lives. Now, there's another way you can do this, right? Right after this call, you take the phone, you send a text message to someone that you admire, that you love, a message of appreciation, and that kind of, that's what we are saying here. Because the world needs more appreciation, not critics. We already have that enough. We need more encouragers in the world. So be someone that adds value to others. Be quick to appreciate, right? Because that is what is missing in the world. And the third one is study leadership daily. What I mean by this is really learn something new every day. Be someone that studies something. It could be a topic that you are teaching, and it's perfectly fine. Don't go to bed without feeding your mind a good thought during the day. That's really what the whole message here is there, right? And it can, if you love watching Netflix, perfectly fine. If you love watching documentaries, that's all right. Maybe some of you love watching a particular movie that gives you a particular, that's all right. The message here is make sure before you go to bed every day, a good thought goes into your mind, right? And the next one is practice leadership, right? Be a role model in your community. As I said earlier, teaching is influence, nothing less, nothing more. You are, no offense to any politicians out there. You don't get to choose to be a leader. You can't say I'm a leader. No, it's how other people see you as, right? Because that's what makes you a leader, right? And one can win an election and be in a position, because many of you know a title doesn't make you a leader. It's what you practice and your role model, right? So, for example, when I studied about this black box thing, and I've been sharing this with many people. I think so far I've trained thousands of people around the world on this topic, right? So practice leadership, be a role model, be somebody that can benefit your community, not just because of your title or because of what you do, but really because of who you are as a human being in your community, right? And also remember this, when you are gone, how do you want to be remembered? Is a very important question we need to ask every day, because there is a choice we have. For example, when you work in an organization, when you're gone, do people celebrate you because of who you are, or do people celebrate because of how painful you were in that organization and you didn't do anything, right? Of course, you want people to celebrate you because of who you are as a human being. And really, the last point here is intentionally grow. Growth doesn't happen automatically. everyone on this call, I'm sure you know, if I ask you how to lose weight, you probably know, right? It's eat healthy, go to gym or fitness, right? But why it doesn't happen with many of us? Because you have to intentionally take action. 18 months ago, I was 89 kg. And today when I speak with you, I'm 70 kg. You know how I did that? It was tough, very tough. I still eat, by the way. I love, it's not about dieting. There's no such thing as dieting. It's about watch what you eat, when you eat, and how you eat. Now, but majority of that is a tough fitness program that I went on. And I did my first marathon last year in Singapore, 42 kilometers. When I first started running 18 months ago, I could run only like half a kilometer and I'm dead. I cannot run anymore on the treadmill, right? So intentionally, I would go to even on the most toughest day, I would go to the gym and I would practice and practice and practice, right? So intentionally grow means that for example, when you go to school to teach, when you enter to the classroom, you need to have this mindset. What am I going to do today to add more value to my students, right? And that is the mindset. That is what you call as the growth mindset. That is the black box thinking. So as we come almost to the end of our session today, here are these 5 points that I would like to share with all of you, which I really hope that have added value to you. This is what I call as those, black box thinking, or the mindset of the black box thinking. Hopefully that, this can help you to be a great leader, be a great communicator, be a great contributor in the community, right? And hopefully that will help you to make the lives of other people better because of your presence, because of what you will do, right? And most important thing is understanding that these things you have to do every day. Like you can't choose Saturday and Sunday and say, I'm not going to do those 5 things. But when you start doing it, automatically it happens, right? So ladies and gentlemen, I really hope that you understood this idea of black box thinking. It is creating your own box of what works for you and do those things more often, right? What works for me may not work for you, and that's all right. We're all different. I'm not saying you have to do those 5 things. That's the guidelines. But if we want to go beyond our potential, we need to have something that we really do well. And whatever we do well, that is considered as our black box thinking, right? If you are somebody who is very good at loving and caring other people, that is a part of your black box thinking, right? Because if you look into any success story around the world, there is a surprising truth about those success stories. And that is what you refer as black box thinking. So I hope that everyone on this call got a very good idea of what black box thinking is and how that impacts the lives. And I want you to take a moment now, go to the chat box and write down if you enjoyed my conversation, and drop me the questions that you have. If you want to ask a question, you can on the microphone and ask a question, and you can write it in the chat box. Yeah. Or go to the chat box and write, what did you learn from my conversation today? Or the time we had together. Nearly almost, we spent, almost 51 minutes. I did actually put my stopwatch on, so it's 51 minutes almost. So that's it from me. Thank you, Miss, and thank you, Principal. Thank you all the teachers. But I definitely want to see if there's any question you want to ask. I'm happy. I'll stay here.